Okay, so I did say we're going to go on, but I kind of felt like there's one important, arguably the most important thing, which we didn't talk about, is Ikkar Gadol Shel Kol Talui Bo. Right. So this is in Yesodei Torah. You want to tell them the page?
Oh, yeah, it's 34.
Oh, it's so easy.
Okay. For the 34 tzaddikim,
Right.
minus Anochi and Lo Yel. Okay. So this is in halacha vav in the correct numbering. Vidias davers and mitzvos say. So knowledge of this matter, meaning everything from halacha 1 through 5, is a positive mitzvah. As it says, anyone who did we settle on how to translate that? Not brings it to mind is too easy to do, right? Here doesn't mean brings to mind. Who accepts the view, I guess maybe would be the thing. Accepts the view that there is Sheyisham Eloah Acher, that there exists another God, chutz mizeh, other than this, or aside from this, over below has transgressed a negative commandment. Shnemar, as it says, Lo yeh lecha Elohim achirim al panai. You shall not have other gods before me. V'kafar be'ikar, and he has denied the main principle. Zehu ha'ikar gadol shel kol talui bo, because this is the great fundamental that everything is dependent on. Yeah. So the question is, like, what is he adding by that? And furthermore, I mean, not that we're mixing our Rambams, but like when we think of if someone says, Rambam, Ikkar, what do you think of? You think of the 13 Ikkarim, right? But this is clearly on a different level of Ikkar in the sense that it is the big Ikkar that everything is dependent on. And we don't say that, in other words, he's not talking about Ikkarim in the sense of like Ikkarim of Yugam Ikkarim that Olam Haba is dependent on, because even though this is one of them, there's a lot more, right? And this is not Ha Ikkar Hagadol Shel Kol Talui Bo. Right. Yeah. So and also the question is like, just what is he adding by doing this? I mean, this does not seem to be part of the mitzvah, right? Because otherwise he would have included it in the mitzvah in the thing before. And we've already seen that if you don't have this, then you don't have, or if you don't have the idea of first primary existence, then you don't have the idea. You don't have any sciences or Yesodos.
What's he adding?
Yeah. What's he adding? And then we did in one of the early shiurim, we did meander into Hilchos Krias Shema, right? Where that's the only other place where he says, so let's look there again, just in case it's relevant. So this is in Sefer Ahava. I got to tell you, by the way, while we're waiting. Yeah. So now that I had to, since this is a new computer and this is a new Google Chrome, so none of the links that I've been to have been, like all the links are unclicked, right? Because this is a new Chrome. So I was looking at my old one, and I just noticed that like Sefer Kinyan was completely unclicked. And it'll be interesting to see what areas of the Mishnah Torah get accessed when, in terms of like seeing how much of the rest of it's kind of like the equivalent of like flipping through a, certain pages of like a physical book and like it gets worn down, So yeah. All right, so Krias Shema, we'll start from the beginning because its context is pretty close by. So this is Krias Shema, Parak Aleph, Halach Aleph, Mayim B'chol Yom Korin Krias Shema, Erev U'Vaboker. And twice a day we read Krias Shema, in the evening and in the morning. Shnemar, as it says, when you lie down, when you rise up. At a time when people lie down, that's night, and a time when people get up, that's day. Uma Hu Kore. What does he read? Shlosh Parshios Elu. These three passages. The Eluhain. Elu. Vehain, and they are Shema, Uvahaya Im Shemoa, Uvayomer. Umakdimin Likros Parsha Shema. So you start off with the Parsha of Shema. Mipnei sheyesh bat sivui al Yichud Hashem ve'ahavaso ve'talmudo. So you start with the Shema because it contains the commandment regarding the oneness of God and love of God. Okay, ahavaso is love of God because it's ve'hafta, and the Talmudo, and his learning, study, right, which is Talmud Torah presumably. Shehu ha'ikar hagadol shehakol talui bo, that it is the great fundamental that everything is dependent on. We did talk about this, right? I'm not imagining it in the very beginning in some random context.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't even remember what the context was, but so the question there, I mean, that's a grammatically difficult statement because shehu ha'ikar gadol shakol talibo is the great fundamental, but he just mentioned three things. So which of the three is it, right? So it'd be weird to say that it's the last one because you're going to say that Talmud Torah is more fundamental than oneness of God and love of God, So like, and if you say that it's referring to the oneness of God, which would be the best candidate, then that's weird that it's.
He said all three.
He says all three, right? Say Yichud Hashem, shehu v'tzivoy ahavasa v'tamudo. So I think
they just be synonymous. Like we're gonna,
right.
Maybe it just means the same thing.
What do you mean by the same thing?
Let's say the most important thing is the knowledge of God and the first existence. So,
yeah.
But he's just wording it like three different ways.
Right. So
those are all bringing you back to the
yeah. So I think we said something along those lines last time, and I want to like refine that, right? So it makes sense to say shehu, that the one thing is somehow collectively the commandment regarding all three of these things, right? Even though these are separate mitzvos and these are separate ideas, you could have an idea of Yichud Hashem without having other stuff, or Talmud Torah without Avos Hashem, etc. So in some sense, these are all in Ikkar HaGadol Shel Kol Tolebo. And then if you go with if Yichud Hashem, Avos Hashem, and Talmud Torah equal, or Talmud, it's not even Talmud Torah necessarily, whatever Talmudo is. If those three equals Ikkar HaGadol Shel Kol Tolebo, and Yedias Hashem and Lo Yelecha, Anochi and Lo Yelecha also equals Ikkar HaGadol Shel Kol Tolebo, then right, then somehow they're all
right.
Now he's just describing that.
Right. But then what does that mean though? Because in the case of I'm going to go back to, I should have kept over in two windows here. In the case of Yesodei Torah 1:6, then he was talking about someone who holds by lo yelecha Elohim acher, someone who violates lo yelecha Elohim acherim al panai. So really the subject of the sentence here, or sorry, the object of the sentence, the subject is one who embraces the notion of another God. That person has denied the Ikkar, since this is the Ikkar that everything is dependent on. So the weird thing, and I don't know what to make of this, but like, that seems to be talking about Ikkar as like an idea.
Okay.
Whereas in Hilchos Krias Shema, Yichud Hashem, Avos Hashem, and Talmud Do are mitzvos. In other words, holding by another God, or believing another God, or believing in Hashem, that's like the mind's relationship to an idea. Whereas Tzivui al Yichud Hashem v'Avas Talmud. I guess my question is, does the Ikkar HaGadol go back to the Tzivui, or just the Yichud Hashem, Avas Hashem, and Talmudo?
Meaning the fact that we're commanded to do that?
Yeah, meaning because he might just be bringing in the commandment aspect because he's explaining why Parsha Shema comes first, and Parsha Shema contains the mitzvah of these.
Right. I have another question.
Yeah, sure.
It seems he's in Krias Shema, he's saying Yichud Hashem is one of the Ikkars that we're talking about, like part of the Ikkar. But over here in Yesodei Torah, it's like Anochi and Lo Yelecha.
Right.
We haven't even gotten to Yichud Hashem.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
I don't know. Is it all included?
Meaning, presumably, I don't know if this is just approaching your question from a different angle. Like, let's say we stop reading the Mishnah Torah after Halacha Vav. So we wouldn't ever even think about the idea of Yichud Hashem, because we haven't read that yet. And certainly not Avos Hashem and Talmud Torah, which exists completely independently of that. But the fact that he brings it in Krias Shema means that's part of the concept. Whatever this Ikkar HaGadol Shel Kol Tolebo is, that's part of this Ikkar HaGadol. So like, it's weird that he delays the introduction of the full explanation of the Ikkar HaGadol until Hilchos Krias Shema.
Right.
Is that different from what you're saying? I know you're asking it in a different way, but
right, no, but it's similar. Related.
Is it seeking the same information, I guess? Yeah.
Cool.
And just what's included in his hakol? Like, is it like, mitzvos?
Well, I guess he did say Yesodi, so I'm gonna fuck.
Right.
So maybe that's like, he's saying literally like everything, all knowledge.
So it could be all knowledge, yeah.
Right, but then again, he said that earlier.
Right.
So
Right.
What's the new point here?
And this Ikkar HaGadol includes more than, before he was just talking about the idea of independent existence, of God as an independent existence,
Right.
not the other notes of this.
Yeah.
I just also, while we're thinking, I want to look at I believe, not that we're learning Sefer Chinuch, but the Sefer Chinuch says something similar on that mitzvah. I just want to check him out and see if he maybe just get a foothold here. Okay, so where would it be? What's the easiest way to get there? Let's go to Shemos, chapter 20. Then click on Monei HaMitzvos. And then click on Chinuch 25. There you go. He says at the end, okay, he doesn't. So you know how at the end of Sefer Chinuch, are you familiar with it? No. Okay, so at the end of the Sefer Chinuch, he always tells you who is obligated in the mitzvah and when they're obligated. Let's say like only during the Beis Hamikdash or not, and then or what times of day or whatever, and then what the punishments are for violating it. So he ends off with this one. So this mitzvah is in effect at all times for men and women. And if someone transgresses it, he has no portion and merit with Israel, as we've explained. Oh, maybe he did explain it earlier. And he says, "V'zos min mitzvos she'ein lahem zman yadua, shekol yimei ha'adam chayav lachayos b'machashav hazo." So this is one of the mitzvahs that doesn't have a specific time, because an entire person's life he has to live with this thought. Yeah, so maybe he did say earlier. Let me see it. I thought he uses the phrase Ikkar. No, not there. So maybe it's in Lo Yelecha. Let me just indulge me for 1 second while I check this. Lo Yelecha.
Why is that important for the mitzvah?
Oh, here we go.
That he doesn't.
Just 1 second. So he says, so this is in the beginning of his mitzvah of Lo Yelecha. Shlo namin be. I don't know if that's a typo. It looks like it says it's Aleph Lamed Hey. That's got to be Aloha. That's got to be a typo. Bilti Hashem levado, except for Hashem. Shalom namin Elohim ache azulasi Hashem yisbarach levado. We should not believe in any other God other than Hashem. Shnemar, as it says, Lo yilcha Elohim achrim apanai upirusho lo tamin. No, it's Elah. Is Elah like some obscure singular form of Elohim? Elah? I don't know. Acher zulasi. Okay, fine. V'kasav haramban zal lo timsal olam shiomar akasav Elohim achirim rach al hamanas halev. The only time the Torah, Ramban says, the only time the Torah says Elohim achirim is regarding belief of the heart. Al ha'asiya lo yomar la'olam lo tase Elohim achirim. It never says by making, don't make other gods. Ki lo tafal tipol b'lashon asiya achirim. Okay, fine. V'yafi diktik zal divrei pi chacham chen. Okay, here's the part. V'zos ha'mitzvah hi ha'ikar ha'gadol she'b'Torah. Ikar she'b'Torah. Shekol talui alav, that everything is dependent upon. Kamosha amru chazal, like Chazal say, kol modib avodah zarah kafar b'chol Torah kula. Anyone who acknowledges validity of avodah zarah, it's as if he denied the entire Torah. Yeah, so that's like, I just want to read that as like a contrast to the Rambam, is that Sefer Chinuch is saying it's like an Ikkar of Torah, and if you affirm avodah zarah, you're denying all of Torah. Is that what the Rambam's saying, or is the fact that he's saying Ikkar hagadol shehakol talui bo, and hakol is like including much, much, much more than Torah? You know, is this like a metaphysical statement about like a person's knowledge, or is this like everything in the Torah itself is dependent on it? Right. What were you saying though that I interrupted you about?
Oh yeah, I guess why is that important that for the mitzvah? In the Sefer Chinuch, it seems more clear.
Yeah.
The fact that he talks about like, you know, chaluk with Yisrael.
Right.
Like, why is that important for the mitzvah? I don't know his style.
In the Sefer Chinuch, I also don't know his style well enough to say why he has to include that, because usually he does just do like onshim, you know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I guess also for Rambam, like, is this gonna? Right.
Rambam I think is a clearer question here, because he's just throwing this in as though, and it's not like he has to, again, like he's not talking about olam haba here. Right. You know, he's not talking about the definition of an apikoros. This is like more primary. That's why I'm like inclined to think that this is like how cool. I don't know. I just don't know how cool it is, you know. Someone leave a fish tank in the basement there? What's that
What is that?
trickly sound? Yeah.
It's a pipe sound.
Maybe.
Yeah, I just never heard that here before.
Weird. Huh.
It sounds like a fish tank, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy quiet here. It's very nice.
Oh, good.
Not this quiet at home.
Okay. I was going to say, I was wondering if you were going to go in the nice direction or the not so
No,
nice.
I mean, it'd be great if there were more people.
Yeah. One day.
Right.
So should we just move on and miss the Ikkar Gadol Shel Gadol? Should we just think about it? Like,
Well, just one thought I had,
Yeah.
maybe, like, it is the first, like, part of the Mishnah Torah.
yeah,
And he's kind of, it seems like this is like Yesodei Torah.
yeah.
So maybe he's like, not explaining that, but like, maybe it is like you can't have any of the rest of the Torah without this idea. So like,
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, would make sense.
You know, still the same
Like,
question is why say it twice? Like,
Yeah.
if there's nothing new to bring here.
Well,
I guess
no.
maybe it's stressing the point.
The first time was not the Torah though. The first time we were saying that
Right.
like
Oh.
you can't have the idea of knowledge without there being a first like a fundamental reality. You know, and this is now would be saying for Torah itself, the system. You know, this is like his anti-orthoprax polemic, right? Orthoprax, you know, orthopraxy.
What?
Those people, the people who it's a group of Orthodox Jews. It's not like a movement or anything like that. It's just a self-described like label that they keep all the Jewish practices, but they don't hold by the Jewish beliefs, or they don't hold that there are Jewish beliefs.
Right.
You know, orthoprax meaning practice as opposed to orthodox, doxa meaning belief. Yeah, you know, orthodox literally ortho like orthopias, orthodontist. Ortho means straight, and doxa is belief, so straight beliefs.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Or strict beliefs, I guess it would be the doctrinal beliefs. Yeah.
Maybe you could say that the first time he was saying it, he was like trying to include everything, like we were saying, and then the second time he was trying to give like more of like a practical.
When you say first and second, I just want to make sure. Are you first
beginning to this
to?
in Yesodei?
Oh, okay, fine. So not this in Krias Shema.
Right.
Okay,
not
yeah,
this,
okay, yeah.
Right here. And then maybe when he's saying here in Vav, and it seems like he's talking more about like the Torah. He's just trying to give us more of like a practical example of types of knowledge or something like that.
I'm not sure what that would mean. Giving us a practical example, practical. Well, like, what do you mean by that?
Well, like meaning in the first one, he's just saying that like you can't know anything at all.
Right. That I get.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we're saying like, I mean, obviously it's obvious if you can't know anything at all that you couldn't know anything at all, and Torah is something, so that would be included in that. But because it's like a very abstract thing to be like, well, you can't know anything at all. Well, can I know that? Like, I feel like I know something. Like,
Right.
What's
Right.
going on? It's a very abstract thought to try to break down.
Yeah.
So then he goes, oh, you can't know Torah, you can't, or you know, or you won't be able to know this. So he's like breaking it down for us. I don't know.
Huh. I don't like it. And I'll tell you why. Because this, first of all, just to reiterate, I'm pretty sure that his idea of Yisodei only goes for that first point, the first paragraph, which is the idea that there is an independent existence that everything else is dependent on. And so I don't think, what was it? As opposed to including Bet, Gimel, and Daled. Or Bet and Gimel, I mean. Meaning, Lefikach is not part of that. Lefikach eina mitas kamidas achad mehem. That's not part of the Yisodei Yisodos. And Amatu zehu eloka ha'olam adon kol ha'aretz. That's also, I don't think that that's part of Yisodei Yisodos. That can be argued, but regardless of whether you accept me saying that, I feel like it's too far away and too unclear to be a clarification. You know,
That should have been the first thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here's another radical question. What's the Ikkar? Okay, we've been treating up until now that Anochi and Lo Yelecha is the Ikkar. What? Maybe he's just talking about Lo Yelecha. Meaning, if you violate Lo Yelecha, I mean, I guess it is practically the same thing as not being Makayim, which was the mitzvah to say that. So never mind.
Right. You're kofar but Ikkar of the Ikkar being that there can't be any other gods.
Yeah. I was just wondering if that reading works out.
Yeah, it's possible.
Tuffy. And I also don't know what talui is, right? Like in other words, Yisod HaYisodos Amar Chachmos. That's like built into the mashal of you can't have a building without a foundation. You can't have a thing on top of a pillar without the pillar it's on top of, right? Talui, is that the same relation? He's just using a different like idiom, or is it that they're like talui to me is like, you know, okay, no, it's like the way we explain Yesodei and Chachmos, it's like you can't have a concept of knowledge without a concept of reality, of there being like a fundamental reality by which truth is measured by being in line with, you know. So it's like it's built into the concept of knowledge, and Yesodos is this axiom of there being a primary existent. Okay, that's one thing. Talui though is like, my inclination is to think of it as lots of things are dependent upon it, like consequentially, like in logical like consequence, meaning like, or not, maybe consequence is the wrong word, but like, let me give you an example of this. Like, so if something, everything is totally on, I'm not being clear. In other words, like,
Green to color. That's what I was thinking.
It's good.
what was that?
I was gonna say green is reliant on color.
Yeah.
Right, like you can't have like a green thing without
color.
Right. So are you saying that's more like the first, like Yesodos type relationship, or Talui both?
I don't know.
I would say more taller boy.
Uh-huh.
I think.
Yeah, I don't know which one I was saying.
Right.
For that one.
Because it's a dependent existence. Like without color, you couldn't have green.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or green would be something else.
Or like, right.
It just wouldn't be color.
Right.
It would be, I don't know.
It's a very green idea. Like maybe this would be an example of talui. Like we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everything is built upon that, but not built upon it in the same way that that everything is built on Matsui Rishon. The very notion of knowledge you can't have unless you have an idea of an underlying reality. That's Yesodei Chachmos. But when it comes to America, all of America's independence and the Constitution are built upon these premises that are self-evident. But you can have a country without these ideas. You just can't have, like, the whole endeavor, the whole enterprise is based on these axioms. That's like a talui type relationship.
Right, like it wouldn't make sense without it, but you could have it. Like
right. Whereas the first one saying like logically you can't have it.
Right.
You know.
So it's an incidental dependent existence.
Yeah.
It's not a necessary dependent existence.
Whoa. Wow. Yeah. Yes, I think I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so let's keep thinking about it and see if we find anything there. All right, but time to move on now. Time to move on to the second most important idea, Yichud Hashem. Okay, Eloka ze echad hu. This God is one. Eno lo shnayim v'lo yesar al shnayim. He's not two, and he's not more than two. That always kind of bothered me, right? Is like, if he's not, two, then is he more than two? So is this like, like because dualism is its own, like you have monotheism, you have dualism, and then you have like polytheism, but like dualism is like its own unique branch of like, shtei rishuyos, like Chazal are always saying, like two gods.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a different question, but like, is that like, are you saying he's saying that there's like a separate problem with dualism as opposed to polytheism, or like?
I'm just saying, why does he have to even like single them out, saying shnaim and lo yeser al shnaim? Like once you say it's echad,
then anything besides
it's not more than one either. He could have just said it's not more than one,
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing that's not one can be one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, maybe he's singling it out because it is a separate, like, categorical mistake that people make in their mind.
Right.
And like all denials of and I'm calling it monotheism right now because he hasn't at this part in the sentence, he hasn't like said that we mean a God who is one. He's just saying that there only is, right now he's really saying that there is one and not more than one. Right. So I'm saying that in the theisms, you've got monotheism, dualism, and then polytheism. So he's negating dualism and polytheism. And then he says el echad, and now he defines what type of one we mean. a oneness like there is no oneness of in the entire world. Lo echad kamin, not one like a species. Shu kolel achadim harbe, which includes many ones. V'lo echad kaguf shu nechlak lemachlakos uluktzavos, and not one like a body or an entity that can be divided into divisions and limited, discrete, distinct portions. Ella yichud she'ein yichud acher kamosa ba'olam. Rather, a oneness like there's no oneness like it in the world. So an absolutely unique oneness. Yeah. Right. Okay. So anything to work on there? So you're just dividing into three, right? I mean, chas v'shalom, but first thing he says is there's one and not more than one. Then he says it's one that is not similar to anything in the world and breaks that into two categories. A species that includes many things, and then an entity that can be divided into many parts.
I think in both cases, he's just giving an example of a whole that is made up of
Right.
parts, and this one is a whole that is not made up of parts.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just a whole.
Yeah. I went through a period where I was against the use of the phrase, or it bothered me to use the phrase Achdus Hashem as opposed to Yichud Hashem. And I don't know if that's actually like, if there's a grammatical basis for it, but I kind of felt like Achdus meant like, I guess because of the way people use Achdus of like the uniting of many things.
Right.
I just don't know, but I guess you could say that Achdus is more related to like the quality of one, like Achdus might be translated as oneness,
And Yichud is like, what is that?
So yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, and really any term we use is going to be inaccurate. I was just like grappling with which one is
less inaccurate.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So is he? So again, he's like specifically targeting like, oh, you might think this is really one. Like when I say one, you might think it's like a goof that one goof, but like no, it's not.
Yes,
he's specifically
targeting that. Yeah, and I gotta hand it to the Rambam here, but and I honestly don't know what the Yichud Hashem curricula are in elementary school, right? Or lack thereof. I feel like when, the very fact that the Rambam puts this idea of Yichud Hashem in the first halacha of what we mean when we say God is one, he doesn't let the other idea take root in the sense of like, I feel like what happens with, just from observation with a lot of kids, is they get the idea that there is only one God, and then they just have that as the only idea they have of Yichud Hashem until they come to Shalhevet and have my Tefillah 101 class, or like read the wrong, like they don't get the idea that he is one until much, much later. Now I understand there's a certain age where a kid can't grasp it, that's too abstract, but the Rambam doesn't even divide this into two halachos, right? Like he's one means that there is only one of him, but it's not like a oneness like anything else. Right. It's a unique idea
it's
of oneness.
Not like any one that any of us have ever encountered.
Yeah, right.
Which is very confusing because it's also one.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Do you think it would be harmful for a kid to have that, to like have this idea like too early?
I don't think it would be harmful, and in fact, I'll go prove it. Hold on.
What?
He's gonna prove it.
Is this kid here?
No.
What's going on? He's going to get his kid. What's happening?
Here I have a small child.
That's what I just asked it. What's happening? He's going to get a kid? Like, what's happening?
It's really funny.
I was really confused.
So if you look in the
Johnny can't think about anything. I didn't mean Johnny. Any other name.
Okay, let's see, where is it though? Give me a second. I believe it's in 136, but I could be wrong. Oh, no, 135. So it's on page Nun Daled. And I'll put this on the screen, even though, oh no, actually this is going to be the same. This is going to be the same edition here. Let's see, Sefer Mor HaNevuchim, where are we? Mor HaNevuchim, oh no, that's the wrong translation, hold on. Mor HaNevuchim Kafech. So this is in his list of all the ideas that you should teach little kids by rote, even if they don't understand. Okay, so he says, we're not gonna read the whole chapter, but he says, so he's just been talking about like all the homonyms, like all the terms that are used equivocally for God and for other things, and talking about like all, the negation of attributes. So then he says at the at the beginning of the paragraph 35, Al takshov shekol ma shehi hatzanu beprakim halalu shekadmu al godol hadavar v'sodiosav sodiuso v'richuk hasagaso v'shechasim alav mipnei hamon sheshlish hagasmus ushlir. Hold on a second. Yeah. Sheshlilas hagashmus ushlilas hispaluyos nichlal b'soch zeh. So, okay, don't think that everything that has come before in these chapters regarding the godel hadavar, the greatness of the matter, meaning like how important this principle is, the sodiuso and its esoteric nature, verichuk hasagaso, and how hard it is to grasp, the shechasim alav mipnei hamon, and that we are concerned to not reveal it to the masses. Okay. Don't think sheshlilas hagashmus ushlilas hahispaluyos nichlal b'soch zeh. Don't think that God's non-physicality and his being free from bodily occurrences or bodily qualities or bodily affections is included in that. Okay, in other words, it's not true. So in other words, you've got two things. You've got the esoteric aspects of God, of like what we mean by God, and then negation of physicality and affects. Okay, so now he's gonna expand on that. Ella kishem shetzarich lachanech es hakatanim ulefarsim b'hamon ki Hashem yishadav Yisrael echad. Just like we train kids and publicize to the masses that Hashem, may he be glorified and exalted, is one. V'she'ein roi la'avod zulaso, and it's not proper to worship anyone other than him. Kain tzarich l'shanin. So, and those are things which even today they teach kids by rote. There's only one God. We don't worship anyone else, right? So just like that, kach tzarich l'shanin lahem ki Hashem eno guf. You also have to teach them that God is not a body. V'ein dimion beino levein beruav klal b'shum davar mina dvarim, and there's no similarity between him and his creations at all in anything. V'she'ein mitziuso ke'ein mitziusam, and his existence is not like their existence. V'lo chayav k'mo chay mehem, and his life is not like any one of the lives of their living things. V'lo yidiaso k'mo yidias kol mi sheyesh lo yidia mehem. God's knowledge is not like the knowledge of any one of them. V'she'ein Hashoni beino levinam beribui umiut bilvad, and that the difference between him and them is not only in terms of more or less, meaning it's not just quantitative, ela b'min hametzius, but in the very type of existence. Klomar shetzarich la'ames etzel hakol. You need to affirm or verify. I don't know how you want to say it. For everyone, she'ein yidiasino v'yidiaso o yichalteno v'yichalto shonim beribui umiut v'chozek v'chusha v'chol hadam lekach. That the difference between God's knowledge and our knowledge and his ability and our ability is not just different in terms of greater or less or stronger or weaker and other things like that. Ki hachazak v'hachalash domim b'minam b'hechreach b'kolaltam hagdar mesuyemes achida. Because strength and weakness are similar in their genus and are necessarily comprised in one definition. In other words, if I say that so-and-so is stronger than so-and-so, I am saying that they bear a similarity in their general category, and they just differ in terms of the quantity of their strength. Same thing, two relations, every relation is only between two things that are under the same genus. Ela kol mish mashi misyachas elav yisrael shona mitorav mikol tzad ad she'ena misachdim b'shum hagdara klal. Anything that we ascribe to God is completely different and is not under the same definition at all. V'chein mitziuso u'mitzius kol shezulaso ne'maros aleim omnam mitzius b'shituf Hashem k'mo she'avar. Anything that we say about God's existence is just by way of equivocal terminology. Kashirza yaspik lekatanim lahamon likboa b'machashavtam sheisham matzui shalem she'eno guf lo koach b'guf hu eloka. That should be enough for kids and for the masses to establish in their thoughts that there exists an existence who is perfect. Oh, he says perfect this time. Who is not a body and not a bodily potential, and he is the God. V'lo yasigehu shum ofen me'ofane ha'chesaron, and he doesn't have any sorts of deficiencies. L'fikach lo tasigehu hispalus klal, and therefore he cannot be affected by anything at all. And he goes on. He explains more and reiterates a little bit more. So he is saying that even for little kids, saying the idea that God is completely different than everything. I mean, it's funny. He doesn't say this exact phrase of the oneness being different, but it's certainly implied because he says he can't even have any qualities that are the same.
Right. But would I mean, let's say a kid didn't put two and two together. You just
Right.
told him like no qualities, but like he still thinks like, oh, it's a composite of some kind.
Right. So you can't control what the kid thinks.
Right.
But I think
you wouldn't have to tell the kid that specifically.
right. But I'm saying that it sounds like what I'm saying is that in the same way that we train them by rote, almost like the Emunah Shir that we did on Thursday, the Itikad thing, like almost like with the bad type of Emunah where you're just telling them what to affirm, verbally. He's saying like that's how we should train them from an early age to say God is one and not a one like anything else. Echad ve'en yachid ki yichudo. Teach them that song, right? And that's a good song. Yeah, that's like the counteracting all the bad songs, but they don't really understand that one. Yeah, yeah. So like whether it takes root or how it takes root, like that's going to proceed according to the kid's development. Like if he doesn't have object permanence, then he's not going to have like differences in Yichud Hashem. But that's how we have to like train him.
I mean, he'll always know that it's a one different than other.
Yeah, exactly. Even though he doesn't think through that or know what it means. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then eventually he'll be able to understand that.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Onward. Okay. Ilu hayu ha'elo. So we're on in the. How do I describe this here? So this is in the paragraph after Zion. Yeah. Ilu hayu ha'elohos harbe. If there were many gods. Hayu gufin ugvios, they would be. Now I never know what the difference is between a goof and a gvia. I think they're just both words for bodies, but I don't know what the implication is. I just want to look at my fancy Rambam for a second and see if they explain it, because he uses that term repeatedly throughout this.
Wait, why is that necessarily true? Like there are a lot of malachim.
Oh, he's going to explain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to address the malachim also, just not in this chapter. Hayu. Gufin ugvios. My footnote guy says gufin ugvios milim nirdafos. These are synonyms. Okay, fine. All right.
That was easy.
Yeah. I think when I translate this in writing, I think I translate them as they would be bodies and discrete entities. Because I think when you say body, I think you think of a physical, gross, but not gross, but like a material body, whereas like. Really, it is the same thing as kvios, but like discrete, distinct entity. I don't know. I'm just trying to like open it up to. If he's going to spend two terms on it, might as well use two English terms that like cover two ways of relating to like entities. Two bodies or entities.
This includes non-physical things also.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Are we gonna have to jump ahead and answer for what angels now? Okay, we'll see. Yeah. Okay.
No, we don't.
Okay. Mipnei. Okay. So why would they be bodies? Mipnei she'in hanimnin hashavim b'mitziasan nifradin ze mizeh ela b'meorin sheyiru hagufos v'hagvios, because things which are equal in their existence can only be counted as separate from each other through the occurrences that occur to bodies, meaning through accidental properties. Okay, meaning if you have two water bottles, right? So these are two same water bottles, but what makes us call them two? So there has to be some differentiating property that only occurs in bodies to differentiate them. So this is less full, this one's more full, this one was made a few seconds earlier than that one. This one, right? Well, this one has a slight dent. So there have to be physical things that differentiate them, or sorry, not physical. There have to be bodily properties that differentiate them. Okay. Then he goes on. He says, hold on, I just lost my place. Oh, v'ilu haya hayoter gufu gvia, and if the creator were a body, haya locates v'tachlis, so he would have a limit and an end, or end and a limit, however you want to say that. She'ef shar lios guf she'in locates, because there is no such thing as a body without an end. So he would be finite. Okay, and we'll have to figure out what it means in a second. We have to read this and the next paragraph. And anything that itself has is finite, its power is finite. Okay, now he makes his argument. So far there's no problems. It's just like he's just saying stats. But Elokeinu Baruch Shemo, but our God, Hoyel v'kocho ein locates, since here we're gonna get into trouble. Since his power is infinite, ve'enu posek, and doesn't cease, shehari hagalgo soviv tamid, because the sphere turns constantly. So this unseats the attempt that we tried to do to update the model of the prime mover argument from Fesser, because we were saying it's not dependent on God making the spheres move. It's dependent on the existence of change in the universe. Here he is definitely specifically saying that the Galgal turns constantly and doesn't stop, and the only thing that can do that is an infinite source of power. So I don't know what to make of it now.
There's no parallel for that.
Not that I know of. Okay, because the Galgal turns constantly. Ein koach guf. So therefore, his power is not a bodily power. Hoil ve'eno guf. And since it is not a body, lo yiru lo me'oros hagufos kadei shehei neflak nifrad me'acher. So then there cannot occur to him bodily accidents that would differentiate him from another. Lefikach I efshar sheyihyeh ela echad. Therefore, it's impossible that he is anything other than one. Via dias davar zeh mitzvos aseh shneimar Hashem Elokeinu Hashem echad. And this matter is a positive mitzvah, as it says, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. Yeah, so this is problematic. Because why does he tie the idea of Yichud Hashem to the whole Galgal thing?
Wait, can you just explain that?
Yeah. So he's saying like this: if there were many gods, they would have to be physical, because two things that are equal in their existence can only be differentiated through physical properties. And if they were physical, then they would be limited, because that's what bodies are. That's what physical things are. They have limitations. And if their body is limited, then their power is limited. But we know that God's power is unlimited because he causes the celestial sphere to rotate, okay, which we don't hold by anymore, and it's constant. Therefore, that whatever power is doing that can't be a bodily power, which means that it can't be a body, and since it can't be a body, it can't have bodily accidents, bodily qualities, that differentiate it, and therefore he must be one. Why? Why does he have to go like through that whole thing, like, and why does he have to tie it to, like, why does he have to tie it to the universe in this way? Right. So really.
Wait, but I mean, it's not that it doesn't. Are we just asking like, why is he saying it this way, or we're saying like this doesn't make sense?
Well,
it makes sense what he's saying. It's just maybe a little bit weird why he's saying
the problem was like this: when we had in Halacha Hey, when he references the idea that God makes the sphere turn. So we said that like that was like a fundamental of like Aristotelian astronomy, and we now know that that's not the case. So what we tried to do is we tried to like we were trying to figure out, well, what would the Rambam mean as a corollary? I mean, does he hold specifically this idea, or is there a modern corollary that we can use? And so the closest thing I had was this author who's an Aristotelian modern guy who basically tried to give an updated argument of Aristotle's prime mover argument, proof, and it was not dependent on there being constant motion of any sort. It was just dependent on the existing change in the universe. And we were like, oh, this works out now. And then now we're seeing though that no, the Rambam does care. Maybe it'll work out for Anochi, but for Yichud Hashem, he's saying it has to be like God has a constant power in the world, And you can't even get this from like the Big Bang, for example, or like the creation of the universe and the fine tuning, because that doesn't show constant power. It shows like intelligence and and like a causality, but not constant power.
Well, if he's I don't understand why he's going so far. Like, if he's a necessary existence, then wouldn't that mean that he
has to be one?
Has to be, yeah, and like doesn't have any limit and all that stuff. Like, wouldn't that come
right? Yes.
From that idea?
Yeah. Right. So that's another question. Is that we said this earlier, that the first four of the Rambam's Yesodos, not speaking the Mishnah Torah, but of the Ikkarim, God's existence, His oneness, His non-physicality, and His eternality, all are one concept, and they can all be derived from one another, because you can't have something that is one unless it's non-physical, and you can't have something, and we saw that a certain Muslim philosopher, that Al-Farabi, does make this point in regards to, he infers Yichud Hashem from God being an independent existence, because he says that if God had multiple qualities, and he went through his own version of this argument, right, is that if he had multiple qualities, they'd have to be differentiated by some quality that's not in the other, and then he worked it out all within Yichud Hashem and God's existence. He didn't have to go into the world, talking to the world. Yeah,
Right.
about the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Weird.
Very weird.
Yeah. Well, if everything is relying on God to exist, then isn't that constant? Meaning, maybe we could just say that that's the constant power that he's talking about. It's not necessarily so much active, it's just that without him, nothing could exist. So the act of existing is constant, and it only happens constantly because of God.
Yeah, let me think about that. I hear what you're saying. So the weird thing, though, is it doesn't sound like that stems from God's power, whereas the idea of the sphere is, because that he says if God didn't exist, nothing else could exist.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he would
it's going from like a negative approach as opposed to like a positive active approach. Like meaning like the thing couldn't if God didn't exist. God
Right.
does exist, the thing exists.
Right.
What does that stem from then? If it's not his power,
What does what stem from?
like
Things existing.
things are existing. Like, what's the difference in that and like spinning the spheres?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. Right? I mean, because even in the way he describes it in Hey, right? So first of all, we noted last time that Adon seems to imply like rulership and mastery, not just contingent existence, that everything's contingent on him.
Right.
V'hu hamanhig, there's another action word. Hagalgal b'koch she'en lo kates v'tachlis, b'koch she'en lo hefsek she'hagalgal sovetam v'yefshar shisav below masaviv, v'hu baruch hu hamisaviv oso below yad v'lo guf. He's describing as God doing an action just without a hand,
Right.
Whereas in the first halacha, he's just saying existence cannot be without a independent existence.
Cool. Well, when we say that everything is relying on God to exist, or we say that everything is relying on God to exist in the way that it exists, or just to exist, but then to exist however it wants to exist?
That's a good question. I mean, in the first halacha, it sounds like just existence per se, like whatever that quality is of existence, but not in the way.
But not in the way.
In the first halacha, yeah.
But now he's saying, like, he makes it happen in a certain, like, is the Galgal like him?
I also don't know what the Galgal, what the
Yeah.
role is of the Galgal in relation to the existence of other
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oof. Tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And here, the other disturbing thing also, just like with the other instance of the Galgal thing, here he's saying that this is Yedias Davar Zeh Mitzvah Soseh.
Yeah.
So
Is
like,
the Galgal is the
and here's the thing also is like, I feel like, and maybe I'm being presumptuous here, I feel like I can have a pretty good idea of Yichud Hashem without halacha, the paragraph after Zion, and without Elohai Elohos Harbe, And even if I did have that idea, I would just think of it in terms of, like, it knows like this. Here's what I would say if I were writing the Mishnah Torah, okay? If there were many gods, they would have to be physical, because things that are equal in their existence cannot be differentiated from each other except without physical properties. End of story, right? So now you have an idea that, if God were more than one, he'd have to be physical. And so anytime you're talking about a God who's not physical, he has to be one. Although here, maybe this is an answer. It is interesting how there's an Ikkar of God's existence and a mitzvah of God, of Anochi. And then there's an Ikkar of Yichud Hashem and a mitzvah of Yichud Hashem. There's an Ikkar of God's non-physicality, but there's no mitzvah of that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like maybe he's trying to work in the ideas of God's non-physicality into the idea of Yichud Hashem so that it emanates from the mitzvah, so that it's somehow included under the mitzvah itself. And the rest of the parak, spoiler alert, is also just talking about how God is not physical,
Right.
and God is outside of time, So by including this, it sounds like he's trying to work it into the idea of Yichud Hashem. But what causes him to take this route, especially? Yeah, it's troubling. I don't know. Let me just read what Mr. Footnote Man says. So he says, we got pictures of Galgals. Ooh, but that's coming later. All right.
Which professor was a Rambam scholar also?
Yeah. We should have our own ones of those, though. We shouldn't have to rely on the Aquinas guy.
Right.
Okay, so he says here, okay, so the proof of God's oneness is done in 3 stages. I always remember shalev. I know that's like a modern Hebrew word. Shalav. I don't even know how to say it. Shalav is phase, step, stage, or rung. Okay, so it's done in 3 stages. 1, im inu chomari, if he's not material, mukhrach shehu echad, then it is clear that it is necessary that he's one. This doesn't sound like the way that the Rambam is doing it. Okay, let's just see where this goes. Sh'imhu, number 2, sh'imhu in sofi. Another Hebrew word. If he's infinite, right? Mukhrach she'ino chomari, then it is necessary that he is not physical. 3, shehu in sofi, that he is infinite. L'chein mukhrach she'ino chomari v'shu echad. Therefore, it's necessary that he is not material and he is one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's satisfying. Nice and clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna need to think about this.
Yeah.
Let's read on, and we'll see if we can come back to this. I'm not sure. All right. Im Kain. We're at what? Im Kain, I think. No. Hari Mefurash.
Yeah.
Hari Mefurash b'Torah v'Navi. It is explicit in the Torah and the Navi. She'ena Kadosh Baruch Hu gufu gvia. See, now if you're gonna go to the Torah anyway, so then why do you need to tie it to derive it from Yichud Hashem? Like, all right, that God is not a body. Shneimar ki Hashem Elokeichem hu Elokim b'Shamayim b'al v'aharetz mitachas. Because Hashem, your God, is a God in the heavens and on high and on the earth below. V'haguf lo yeh b'shnei makomos. Okay, and a body cannot be in 2 places. I remember one time, I don't know if I was there or if I just heard about this. It was a question and answer session with Rabbi Chait, and like some guy thought he was being really smart. So I guess Rabbi Chait read this or said this, and some guy said, well, what if God is just really big? Then he could be in 2 places. He could be on the earth below and in the heavens above. Right. And Rabbi Chait says, if he was that big, you'd see him. Yeah.
Nice.
V'nemar ki lo re'isim kol temunah. It says you did not see anything. There you go. Any image. V'nemar ve'el misa damyuni ve'eshveh. It says, to whom can you compare me that I should be equal or that I should be likened? V'ilu haya guf haya dome l'shar gufim. And if he were a body, he would be comparable to other bodies. Now, I just got to point this out just because in the spirit of the Rambam here. Yeah?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
That clearly person could pervert any pasuk any way they want. So if you held that God was physical or had physical qualities, you could read these psukim in other ways, which is maybe why you need a logical deductive proof. I'm not sure. Like, for example, you could say that lo reason kol temunah because God is invisible. You could say that.
You could just say that God's body is a totally different.
Exactly. It's an ethereal, transparent body. It's like an angel.
Any attribute and just say, well, it's a totally different attribute.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So what the Rambam is doing here is or let's say the El Misa Damyuni Ve'eshveh, you could read that as who can you compare me to that I should be equal. I mean, of course, no one's equal to God, but we could be similar to him. But you see, the Rambam takes it as, so what then is the Rambam doing? Because he's not proving these ideas. He's not proving, if you treat the Rambam's thing as a perush, as one shita, he's not proving his shita from the psukim. And these are not, to my knowledge, these are not, I know as much as the Rambam says that everything in the Mishnah Torah is like a verbatim statement from Chazal, but like, you're not going to tell me that the last paragraph before this was a verbatim statement from Chazal, So I think this is very much in line with what what Torah Shebal Peh is, right? Remember, the Mishnah Torah is Torah Shebal Peh, and it's showing you how to read Torah Shebechsav. So he's through here, and then all the other psukim that he brings, he's really exemplifying a derech of reading the psukim in a way that are consistent with these yisodos and these mitzvos. So he's not going to convince someone who doesn't already hold by this view. But he's showing you, for someone who does, that this is what the Torah means. And again, it is very, very difficult, the fact that and it's difficult for making a case for the Rambam. There's only one pasuk in all of Chumash that is about Yichud Hashem, and that's Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Arguably, I mean, you could say other pasukim are about that, but that's the only one that references it explicitly. And if a person doesn't have this idea of Yichud Hashem, then you can't prove that that's what the pasuk says. And again, that's where the Rambam says, the Trinitarians will also bring a proof from that same pasuk that Hashem is three, because Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem, and they're all one. Three is one. So like it is an interesting thing that he's really. He's doing two things. He's explaining what the mitzvah is, and he's showing you a derech of reading Torah b'chsav, which is consistent with the Ikkarim that he's establishing here.
Which is, he's like doing the same thing he does in the first chelek.
Yes, right. That's just that's like an advanced level, and it's like 101. Yeah. Okay. Im kain mahu zeh shenemar b'Torah v'tachas raglav. If so, then what is this that the Torah says? Under his feet. Ksuvim be'etzba Elokim, written with the finger of God. Yad Hashem, the hand of Hashem. Einei Hashem, the eyes of Hashem. Oznei Hashem, the ears of Hashem. V'kiyotzu b'dvarim halalu, and other things like that. Hakol lefi da'atan shel bnei adam hu. Everything is according to the mind of men. She'enan makirin ela haguvas, which only recognize bodies. V'dibra Torah kalashon bnei adam, and the Torah spoke in the language of man. Hakol kinuyim heim, all of them are nicknames, euphemisms. Kamosh emar, as it says, Im shenosi barak harbi. If I what is the translation there? Shenosi. It's a weird one. Shenosi barak harbi. You mind looking it up in that Tanakh there? 32:41.
Okay. In Devar?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I sharpen my flashing sword.
Sharpen my flashing sword. That's what it is. Okay. If I sharpen im shenosi barak harbi. Okay, fine. Yeah, I was just want to show that. Oh, so he's going to say, does God have a sword? Does he kill people with swords? Ella mashal v'kol mashal. Okay, it's a mashal, and the entire thing is a mashal. Yeah.
What a plot twist.
Yeah, right. Let's do one more, and then I do want to start again tomorrow with these same paragraphs to see if there's anything else, but just read it now. Raya l'davar zeh, there's proof for this. Shenavi echad omer shira hakadosh baruch hu levushe kitlag chivar. Dressed like white, with white like snow or something like that. Some other type of dress. Okay, we can look it up more tomorrow. Moshe saw him at the sea like a man waging war. And at Sinai like a shliach tzibur that was wrapped in a talus. Lomar she'ein lo demus v'tzura. So this is all to say that God has no likeness or image form. Allah hakol b'mar hanavua b'mechazeh. Rather, it's all in a prophetic vision and dream. And the truth is, the mind of man cannot grasp him or analyze him. This is what it says in Eov. Does one who investigates God find? Will he find the ultimate extent of God? Yeah. So again, like again, it's not going to convince someone. Someone could just say, well, yeah, God changes forms, Right. Yeah. Okay. So what I'd like to do tomorrow to begin with is review those last three halachos and see what is the Rambam. Because on the surface, it sounds like just a bunch of examples. So I want to see what the Rambam is doing in each paragraph. Okay.
Cool.
All right. Let's stop here for today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Nice to have you on board.
Yes. Great to be here.